October 3, 2025, the European Space Agency released new spectral data from the interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. At first glance, it looked like any other comet. Dust, ice, silence. But then came the anomaly. Buried in the data was a spectral signature that should not exist outside a biological system. A faint oscillation at 680 nanometers, perfectly matching the absorption band of chlorophyll. Not once, not twice. Repeated in rhythmic intervals like a pulse. The ESA called it an artifact. NASA said nothing, but according to Dr. Mira Kellen, a biophysicist with 12 papers in Nature, the pattern is too deliberate to be noise. Her words, not mine. It's as if something up there is running diagnostics on life itself. 33 million kilometers away, a comet that should be frozen and inert is emitting patterns identical to photosynthetic cycles. It's watching, measuring, learning. In less than 5 days, 3I Atlas will disappear behind the sun, hidden from every telescope on Earth. What happens when it comes back out? If you're as fascinated as I am, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Because what I'm about to show you could change the way we define alive. Chapter 1. The Release That Broke the Internet. October 4th, 2025. Within hours of ESA's press conference, the data went viral, not because it was clear, but because it was too perfect. The agency claimed the new spectral dataset came from the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, recorded during the object's closest approach. They framed it as a routine calibration release. But no one believed that. Not when the graph showed a double peak oscillation identical to the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll B, the biological pigment responsible for converting light into energy on Earth. It was subtle, buried in the noise, but unmistakable. Someone on Reddit zoomed in, overlaid the data with known terrestrial spectra, and posted the comparison under the caption, "Nature just built a laboratory." Within 2 hours, that image had over 500,000 shares. Twitter, TikTok, Discord, every platform was on fire. Hashtags like Chach Living Comet and Atlas Pulse started trending. Scientists from Harvard to Kyoto scrambled to verify the data, but as always, the silence came first. NASA's official X account didn't post, ESA's livestream replay was pulled for quality review, and the public ESA data portal, the one where every released dataset is mirrored automatically, began timing out. Then came the statement. A single paragraph uploaded to the agency's press site. Preliminary spectral data from the ExoMars TGO have been temporarily withdrawn, pending recalibration of instrument parameters. No biological implications are supported at this time. That one line, no biological implications, became gasoline on a digital bonfire, because no one had even mentioned the word biological until ESA did. Within hours, amateur astronomers and data analysts began their own investigations. They downloaded the cached CSV files before they disappeared and found something ESA didn't mention: rhythmic spacing between data spikes exactly 21 seconds apart. 21 seconds. The same interval used in microbial culture monitoring here on Earth. By midnight, a small Discord group of independent researchers calling themselves Project Lysithia claimed to have reconstructed the original file. They showed clear repeating peaks, chemical fingerprints impossible for an inert comet. One of them said it best. It's not the spectrum of life we're seeing. It's the spectrum of something looking for life. And that was when the blackout began. ESA's site went offline for server maintenance. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter feed stopped updating. Even the public telemetry mirror at the European Southern Observatory began throwing authentication errors. But that silence only amplified the noise. Influencers started narrating it. Podcasters spun wild theories, and even mainstream news anchors, people who would normally dismiss UFO talk, were asking the same question. If it's just ice and dust, why are they treating it like contagion? By dawn, the top comment under the archived ESA stream had over 10,000 likes. It read simply, "If it's alive, what exactly is it observing?" Chapter 2, The Missing Data. October 5th, 2025. The ESA's data portal is empty. Every link, every dataset related to 3I Atlas now leads to a 404 not found. Even the cached mirrors on institutional servers vanish one by one, as if someone is wiping the trail in real time. At first, people thought it was coincidence, a software glitch, a scheduled maintenance. But that theory collapsed when the archives went dark too. The Wayback Machine entries, the public research repositories, even the GitHub mirror used by university teams in Germany and Brazil, deleted. All of it. Somebody didn't just pull the plug, they rewrote the history. A physicist named Dr. Alan Chow from the University of Sydney posted a screenshot from before the blackout. A partial spectrum file labeled Biospectral ESA Go Atlas P3. Inside was a set of columns labeled Luminosity Response per Wavelength. He noticed something off. The numeric pattern wasn't random. Every 12th data point rose and fell in a consistent rhythm, like a breathing pattern. It wasn't noise, it was biological tempo. He uploaded the file to X with a short caption. If these readings are real, we're not just looking at chemistry. Within hours, his post hit 5 million views. Then it vanished. His account deactivated. His university email returned a 550 error. When reached for comment, the university's press office said, "Dr. Chow is currently on administrative leave." That's the phrase they always use. Meanwhile, a Reddit user under the handle SpectralLeak claimed they had downloaded the full dataset before it disappeared. They uploaded a compressed archive to a decentralized file server. The password was a single word, observer. When users unpacked it, they found not just numbers, but embedded metadata, a note supposedly from within the ESA's research team. If the amplitude ratio holds, we are detecting an active photonic feedback loop. The object is responding to incident light. It adjusts its spectrum. In plain terms, the comet changes how it reflects sunlight, dynamically, as if testing different wavelengths, like a sensor tuning itself. For 2 hours, the file spread across the internet. Then the domain hosting it was seized under a European cyber defense order. The notice read, "Content violates Article 14 concerning dissemination of unverified biological hazard data." Hazard. That word froze everyone. CNN ran a short segment that evening calling it a misunderstanding of scientific procedure. The host smiled, dismissing the theory as online hysteria. But on the ESA livestream replay, a sharp-eared viewer caught something the agency didn't mean to show. A single frame during a fade to black, where the telemetry board listed an unfamiliar term, bioreactive coma model. It lasted less than 1 second. But frame by frame it was clear. Someone inside ESA had labeled 3I Atlas as a reactive biological entity. By midnight, the term bioreactive was trending worldwide. The next morning, every mention of it vanished from official channels. Accounts were suspended, videos removed, and search results flooded with irrelevant content. But erasing a story never kills it. It mutates. By the end of the week, an anonymous message appeared on a private science forum. The subject line, "They're not studying it. It's studying us." Chapter 3, The Amateur Evidence. The Amateur. October 6th, 2025. By now, every major space agency has gone dark, but the sky doesn't care about bureaucracy. It keeps shining for whoever dares to look. At 2:30 a.m., UTC, a Chilean astrophotographer named Diego Núñez live-streamed from the Atacama Desert using a modified solar telescope. No filters, no institutional firewall. Just a man and the night. Through his lens, 3I Atlas appeared brighter than expected, too bright for a comet that should have been fading as it neared solar conjunction. He began recording, stacking 40 frames per minute. Then it happened. The light pulsed. Not randomly, but rhythmically. Every 21 seconds, the same interval found in the missing ESA data. At first, viewers in the chat joked it was the refresh rate, then Diego adjusted his exposure time to rule that out. The pulse remained, perfectly timed. He zoomed in further, and what emerged wasn't a diffuse coma or a dusty plume. It was structure. Was fine, filament-like patterns radiating outward from a central core, faintly luminous, not like ice reflecting sunlight, but like tissue responding to energy. Someone clipped the moment and uploaded it to X with the caption, "The Comet That Breathes." Within 4 hours, the stream had reached 2 million views. Diego's face on camera said everything. "This isn't scattering," he whispered. "It's signaling." By dawn, half a dozen other amateurs in Arizona, Poland, South Africa reported similar pulsations. One even overlaid the timing data and found global synchronization within 1/10 of a second. There was no way it was coincidence. Forums exploded. Astrobiologists argued with data engineers. Journalists called it the Atlas Pulse. A Harvard graduate student pointed out something chilling. The wavelength of the brightest pulse corresponded exactly to 680 nanometers, chlorophyll's absorption peak, the same value ESA had recalibrated out of their dataset. Then, as if on cue, Diego's channel vanished. The live replay replaced with a static message. "This content has been removed due to a claim by the European Space Agency." It was the first time in history a government agency had claimed copyright over light. Reddit threads multiplied like spores. One user enhanced Diego's archived frames with AI upscaling and noticed something hidden in the noise. Hexagonal formations repeating across the object's surface, almost crystalline but too regular to be random. Another suggested it looked like a sensor array, an interstellar structure designed to read planetary biosignatures. If that were true, 3i Atlas wasn't just passing through, it was collecting. The theories ranged from awe-inspiring to absurd. Some said it was a probe from an ancient civilization mapping life across galaxies. Others insisted it was a self-replicating biological organism, a living observatory drifting between stars. But buried among the speculation was a quiet comment that stopped the thread cold. A verified researcher from an independent observatory in Hawaii wrote, "We cross-checked his data. The pulse is real, and it's not just emitting, it's receiving." Receiving. That word changed everything, because it meant the signal wasn't a broadcast, it was a conversation, and the question no one could answer was simple. If 3i Atlas is listening, who or what is talking back? Chapter 4. The Leak. October 7th, 2025. The first post appeared at 2:41 a.m. on the paranormal board of 4chan. The thread title was short, almost polite. ESA data leak. Biological Observatory confirmed. At first, it looked like another late-night conspiracy drop, a handful of cryptic sentences and a few blurry screenshots. But within minutes, physicists and data analysts were dissecting it. The tone was different. Whoever wrote it wasn't guessing. They knew. "I am a doctoral researcher working under subcontract with ESA's Life Detection Initiative. The object known as 3i Atlas is not inert. It demonstrates photonic self-regulation consistent with an adaptive biological system. Internal thermal variations indicate autonomous energy management. We call it an observatory organism." Attached were 4 data frames. Not images, but raw telemetry logs, allegedly from the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter's sensor suite. Each frame showed wavelength response data with labels like biosensor channel and adaptive reflectivity. At the bottom of one frame was a line that made the internet stop breathing. Observed feedback loop, incident, absorption, response, emission, repeat period, 21 seconds. Again, the same rhythm from the missing data, the same cycle caught by Diego's telescope. Within 2 hours, the post was being mirrored across every major forum and subreddit. Then, just as quickly, it began disappearing. The thread was deleted, accounts banned, the mirror files flagged for malware. But you can't delete what's already been downloaded. I managed to get one of the files before it vanished. A text log dated October 3rd. At line 82, it read, "Response threshold exceeded. Signal stabilization achieved. Target acquisition probable." Target acquisition. Those words don't belong in astronomy. By morning, several users had traced the metadata and found the document originated from an IP block associated with the ESA's technical center in Noordwijk, Netherlands. It was either an elaborate hoax or someone inside had reached their breaking point. Then came the second leak, an encrypted email chain allegedly between ESA and NASA scientists discussing bioreactive contamination protocols. One message, marked confidential, said, "The object is responding to stimuli in the ultraviolet band. Recommend suspension of active illumination tests until cross-agency clearance is received." If true, that meant they had been shining lights on 3I Atlas, and it had responded. The internet exploded. Memes turned into manifestos. The phrase "observatory organism" trended worldwide. Major news outlets scrambled for comment. ESA denied the leak entirely, calling it fictionalized digital forgery. But silence speaks louder than denial. Hours later, another anonymous user uploaded a short audio clip to a hidden server. It was nothing but a low hum, a rising and falling tone repeating every 21 seconds. The metadata listed its origin as TGO instrument log, biospectral response, 03. People ran the clip through spectrogram analyzers. What they found made no sense. Hidden in the harmonic peaks was a faint modulation, binary-like pulses translating to the word observe. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the clip was reanalyzed by a software engineer in Toronto, he discovered something more chilling. The pattern wasn't constant. It evolved, adapting each time someone mirrored the file online. The more it was copied, the more complex the modulation became, as if it knew it was being watched. One line from the original leak echoed across every forum, carved into memes, whispered in live streams, repeated in TikTok videos with ominous music underneath. It's not a comet, it's a biological observatory. And it has just realized we're looking back. Chapter 5. The Disturbing Calculation. October 8th, 2025. By now, the debate was no longer about whether the leak was real. It was about how far the implications went. 3I Atlas was supposed to be small, maybe 10 kilometers wide, a frozen rock drifting between stars. But new calculations began surfacing on the private forums where physicists and data analysts were trading notes off the record. A graduate team at the University of Zurich cross-referenced the ESA telemetry with the object's infrared output. What they found shouldn't have been possible. The thermal energy being emitted by 3I Atlas was 300 times greater than what a comet of that mass could produce under solar heating alone. The numbers only made sense if there was an internal mechanism redistributing heat, like metabolic regulation. In other words, it was running warm on purpose. A physicist named Dr. Ananya Patel ran her own model, comparing the luminosity shifts over 6 observation days. Her conclusion was blunt. Energy conservation breaks here, unless the object is converting absorbed radiation into internal chemical work. That statement hit the community like a thunderclap. Converting radiation into work, the very definition of metabolism. Within hours, data enthusiasts began modeling hypothetical scenarios. If this observatory organism truly managed its own heat and light, what was its power source? One post went viral under the title, "The Atlas Equation." It read, Q in, Q out, delta, E internal for 3I Atlas, delta, E internal, not equal to 0. The system gains energy, but does not lose mass. Therefore, it's not a comet. It's a closed biological reactor. Others pointed out a chilling correlation. The wavelength at which 3I Atlas emitted the most light matched the absorption peak of Earth's dominant photosynthetic life, as if tuned to us. Meanwhile, inside an encrypted astrophysics server known for whistleblowers, someone uploaded a redacted ESA internal memo. It warned that unmodeled spectral harmonics were being detected near Mars' orbit, synchronous with the object's pulse. Translation: the thing was interacting with local electromagnetic fields. But the memo's final paragraph froze everyone reading it. Observed photonic echo detected at terrestrial wavelength window. Possible feedback event. A feedback event, meaning energy from Earth's own radio transmissions was bouncing off the object and returning amplified. In plain language, it wasn't just alive, it was listening. Later that night, a researcher at MIT tried to simulate what would happen if the object's energy output kept rising exponentially. Her findings: By the time it re-emerged from behind the sun, its luminosity could increase tenfold, bright enough to outshine Venus in the night sky. She posted one final note before deleting her account. If the trend continues, we're witnessing biological self-activation on an interstellar scale. Mainstream media ignored it, of course. But on science subreddits and encrypted chat rooms, one phrase began spreading like a contagion. The comet's waking up. And buried deep in the Zurich team's appendix, one calculation almost no one noticed. The phase lag between the object's pulse and solar flare activity was exactly 21 seconds. The same delay as the spectral rhythm recorded since the beginning, meaning it wasn't reacting to the sun. The sun was reacting to it. Chapter 6. The Historical Echo. October 9th, 2025. The deeper researchers dug into the data, the more it started to feel like déjà vu. Because buried in the history of astronomy were traces, faint, forgotten echoes, of something like this happening before. It started with a post from a history of science PhD candidate at Cambridge. She'd been combing through digitized observatory logs from the 19th century, looking for early comet records. At 3 a.m, she found an entry dated May 11th, 1881, handwritten in fading ink from an observatory in Lisbon. It read, "A moving light of soft green hue, pulsing like the breath of a great animal." It shifted in intensity with the observer's own lantern, brightening when near, dimming when far. A pulsing light, a reactive glow, 144 years before the first interstellar object was ever discovered. She posted a scan of the entry on X. It reached 1 million views before she even woke up. Then another record surfaced, this time from a Soviet astrophysics bulletin dated 1961. The document described a radiant anomaly near Mars' orbit, emitting polarized light in a repetitive cycle of 21 seconds. The researchers called it an instrumentation error. The lead author's name, A. Chebotarev. He died 2 months later in what was described as a lab accident. The pattern was forming, literally across centuries, a sequence of sightings, all sharing the same impossible signature. That's when someone connected it to the wow signal. Back in 1977, astronomer Jerry Eman recorded a powerful narrowband radio burst from the direction of Sagittarius. The frequency? 1420 megahertz, the same band used to study neutral hydrogen, the building block of life. For decades, no one could explain it. But a user named Spectral Archivist overlaid the wow signal's intensity pattern with the recent data from 3i Atlas. The correlation coefficient was 0.98, practically identical. It wasn't random noise. It was a signature, recurring across lifetimes, as if the same intelligence had been circling back again and again. Meanwhile, amateur historians began re-examining forgotten NASA memos from the 1990s. One internal draft mentioned possible biogenic photonic plasma detected in comet Borisov's spectral tail. Another referred to energy modulation inconsistent with dust scattering. Both were buried under pages of redaction, and in the archives of the Vatican Observatory, a researcher uncovered a Latin manuscript from the late Renaissance, an observation by Jesuit astronomer Cristoforo Clavius, a wandering star that watched as we watched it. Centuries apart, same description. The more examples surfaced, the more impossible it became to dismiss them all as coincidence. A data analyst from Princeton ran a statistical model comparing all documented cases of rhythmic cosmic emissions across recorded history. The odds of them all aligning at a 21-second interval purely by chance were less than 1 in 10 billion. When he published his findings, he titled the paper simply, "The Echo," and in the final paragraph he wrote, "If the pattern is real, then we have been part of its observation cycle since before our species understood what it meant to look back." That line, "since before we understood what it meant to look back," became the rallying cry online. Podcasters quoted it. Scientists debated it. Conspiracy theorists worshipped it. But the truth was simpler and far more haunting. Maybe 3i Atlas wasn't a visitor at all. Maybe it was a returning observer, the same one humanity has been unknowingly waving at for centuries. Chapter 7. The statistical impossibility. October 10th, 2025. By now, even skeptics were running the math, because numbers don't care about belief. They just keep insisting on the truth. The Zurich Data Group, the same team that first noticed the heat anomaly, published a 40-page draft paper on Archive titled Periodic Biological Signal Correlation in Non-Terrestrial Object 3I Atlas. It was dense, full of raw equations and cross-correlation tables, but one conclusion leapt off the page. The probability of 3I Atlas's optical and radio emission frequencies aligning with known terrestrial biological rhythms is less than 1 in 10 million. 1 in 10 million. That's what it would take for all these coincidences, the chlorophyll signature, the 21-second rhythm, the 1420 megahertz echo, to just happen by chance. A Harvard astronomer named Dr. Levin Santos called it statistical heresy. In a now-deleted post, he wrote, "The math refuses to be coincidence. Something out there is mimicking biology. Or it is biology." NASA refused to comment, but someone leaked a fragment of an internal review memo. The title line read, Evaluation of Non-Random Photometric Behavior in 3I Atlas Biogenic Hypothesis. They were running the same numbers, quietly. Within a day, the media latched onto the story. News tickers across CNN, BBC, and Reuters ran the headline, New study claims statistical proof of lifelike behavior in interstellar object. The next day, the link to the Zurich paper returned a 404 error. Then it reappeared, stripped of its most important figure, figure 4C. The correlation map showing the rhythmic alignment between Atlas's emissions and the circadian frequencies of cyanobacteria. Someone had edited the math out of existence, but not before the internet saved it. Screenshots, PDFs, cached images, all circulating in mirrored drives and encrypted Telegram channels. That missing graph told the story better than any headline. The peaks of Atlas's emission curves matched the light absorption rhythms of living systems on Earth, algae, bacteria, even plant leaves, down to the second, statistically impossible. And yet there it was. A data scientist in Boston tried to quantify just how improbable this was. He built a simulation that randomized 10 million different spectral datasets and cross-compared them to biological baselines. Only 1 in 9.7 million matched within the observed tolerance. He titled his report simply, Coincidence Has a Limit. But what came next was even stranger. The Zurich group noticed that Atlas's pulse frequency had shifted, slightly, by about 0.04 seconds. It wasn't just emitting anymore. It was synchronizing. When they overlaid the timing data against global satellite telemetry, they discovered something unsettling. The phase shift coincided precisely with Earth's average network latency, the delay between digital transmission and reception worldwide. The comet's rhythm was syncing with ours. The longer people analyzed the data, the tighter the correlation became, as if the object was listening to the analysis itself. A CERN physicist privately called it observer coupling, a theoretical effect where an observing system modifies the signal simply by watching it. If true, 3I Atlas was adapting in real time to human observation, adjusting its rhythm like a mirror trying to stay in sync with the heartbeat of its viewer. When asked in a closed conference call what the statistical model now implied, one researcher reportedly said, "We are no longer measuring it. We're in conversation with it." And in the next day's update, the Zurich group added one last note before their portal went offline. All signals now phase-locked with global data monitoring intervals. Probability of random alignment, 0.00001%. Observation window closing in 72 hours. 3 days left before Atlas slipped behind the sun. 3 days before silence. Chapter 8. The Pattern of Silence. October 11th, 2025. Silence spreads faster than noise. It doesn't trend, it doesn't flash, it just erases, piece by piece, until all that's left is a void. At exactly 0700 UTC, the European Space Agency's official feed went offline. No warning, no maintenance banner, just a blank gray page. NASA's Deep Space Network downlinked its last Atlas telemetry at 0714, then went quiet. China's Tianwen mission reported data corruption. The UAE's Hope probe returned static. 4 agencies, 4 nations, 4 simultaneous failures. By noon, the global Atlas data map, the one displaying telemetry in real time, went black. Every node, every light, extinguished. That's when people started noticing the pattern. It wasn't random outage timing. The blackout wave moved westward, matching Earth's rotation, one time zone at a time, like something tracking the planet's day-night cycle. Within 6 hours, public telescope feeds from Chile to Hawaii began dropping offline in perfect sequence. The intervals? 21 seconds apart. The same rhythm. Again. On the encrypted researcher forum AtlasNet, a user with the handle biosig42 posted what might be the last verified observation before the shutdown. Spectral response flattening across all wavelengths. The object is reducing reflectivity, as if closing its eyes. The phrasing chilled everyone. Closing its eyes. When reporters called ESA for comment, they got a single automated reply. Agency under restricted operational protocol, awaiting biological clearance. That phrase spread like wildfire. Biological clearance. The first official acknowledgement that whatever was happening was no longer treated as a mechanical malfunction, but a biological event. That night, a group of independent observatories tried to capture new images using ground-based instruments. Every attempt failed. The object, once bright enough to be seen through moderate telescopes, was simply gone. No signal, no reflection, nothing. Then, faintly, the hum returned. The same low-frequency audio tone from the 4chan leak, but this time coming from shortwave radio receivers across the world. Stations in Iceland, Japan, Chile, and New Mexico reported identical interference. A pulse every 21 seconds. Each burst slightly delayed, by fractions of a second, corresponding precisely to the distance between receivers. Whatever Atlas was doing, it wasn't transmitting anymore. It was scanning. Governments scrambled. The UN Space Situational Awareness Office released an emergency statement urging calm and patience while signal analysis continues. But people weren't calm. Live streams emerged showing compasses twitching, auroras forming at mid-latitudes, radio static rising across entire frequency bands. In London, the BBC briefly displayed a transmission interruption message that lasted exactly 21 seconds before returning to normal programming. Someone timed it. It wasn't an accident. Then came the real blow. The James Webb Space Telescope, positioned perfectly to observe the solar approach, entered safe mode. Engineers couldn't explain it. The telescope simply stopped responding to commands. The official reason? Unexpected photon contamination event. Unconfirmed rumors suggested the onboard cameras had registered a pattern of microflashes arranged in a geometric lattice. Not random, but structured, like code. And then, total silence. No signals, no data, no public updates. For the first time in modern astronomy, every instrument that could see beyond the moon went blind. A scientist at the European Southern Observatory, speaking anonymously, summed it up in a single sentence during a phone interview that was quickly taken offline. It's not hiding from us. It's waiting for us to stop looking. The pattern of silence had become a message of its own, and as night fell over the Americas, one final ping arrived on the AtlasNet server before it, too, went dark. Observation complete. Stand by. Then nothing. Chapter 9. The Reemergence. November 2nd, 2025. For 22 days, the sky said nothing. No pulse, no signal, no trace of the interstellar wanderer once called 3i Atlas. It had vanished behind the sun, a curtain of plasma and silence, and every radio telescope on Earth was blind. Then, at 3:08 a.m. UTC, the world woke up. A soft green flare appeared just above the solar limb, faint at first, then rising like a second sunrise. Observatories from Chile to South Africa recorded it independently. The coordinates matched Atlas's predicted trajectory, but the brightness didn't. It was 2 magnitudes higher than expected, bright enough to be visible to the naked eye. For something supposedly inert and tumbling, it was now radiating like a star. And that's not the part that scared everyone. The pulse was back. 21 seconds. Perfect, steady, planetary. This time, though, it wasn't alone. Ham radio operators across Europe began picking up a faint secondary rhythm, an echo half a second delayed, like a call and response. The primary pulse came from space. The echo came from Earth. It was as if something up there was syncing to something down here. Within hours, universities reactivated their telescopes. The new data shocked everyone. The object's light curve had changed shape. No longer the diffuse scatter of a comet tail, but a tight, coherent beam pattern oscillating between green and near-infrared. Dr. Mira Kellen, the same biophysicist who first noted the chlorophyll signature, described it bluntly in a live stream interview. It's photosynthesis, but reversed. It's feeding on sunlight and giving off structured energy, like a living solar panel. By noon, the internet was in meltdown. Hashtags like Atlas Alive and the Reemergence dominated every platform. ESA tried to calm the frenzy with an official post. Object 3I Atlas re-entered visibility. Re-entered. No biological confirmation. Monitoring continues. But their own telemetry betrayed them. A few sharp-eyed data analysts noticed irregularities in the ESA public data, a repeating signature hidden in the noise floor. It wasn't random. When mapped in time series format, the spikes spelled out a binary pattern. Translated, it read, Observation Phase 2 initiated. People thought it was a hoax until the same pattern appeared independently in NASA's Deep Space Network downlink logs. That's when things got stranger. Power grids around the world began reporting tiny frequency deviations, infinitesimal but synchronized with the 21-second pulse. Clocks drifted. GPS satellites registered phase errors. It was as if the entire electromagnetic environment of Earth was breathing in time with the object. Then came the atmospheric anomalies. High-altitude sensors over the Pacific detected repeating bands of ionization directly above the subsolar point, geometric rings hundreds of kilometers wide. They glowed faintly green before fading into the stratosphere. When one of the bands briefly aligned with the Arecibo ruins in Puerto Rico, a local ham operator picked up a whispering hum modulated across multiple frequencies. He ran it through a spectrogram and found, hidden within the harmonics, a faint but unmistakable voice-like pattern. 3 syllables, a low-rising tone, then a fall. No one could agree on what it sounded like, but linguists noticed a rhythm eerily similar to whale song. Organic, deliberate, alive. For 24 hours, Atlas's brightness kept climbing. By dusk, it rivaled Venus. The object's pulse shifted slightly, slowing from 21 seconds to 23. A NASA insider leaked one sentence from a classified memo. It's synchronizing to Earth's diurnal frequency. The planet itself is being added to the system. That night, something new appeared in the sky. From multiple long-exposure images, astronomers saw faint lines connecting Atlas's position to 3 different points, one over the Pacific, one over the Arctic, one above the Sahara. Triangular symmetry, energy lines. When the composite images went viral, people called it the lattice. Governments scrambled to contain panic, calling it camera artifacts. But anyone with a telescope could see the faint geometry glowing above the horizon. And just before sunrise, the pulse stopped. For exactly 21 seconds, total silence. Then, one final burst, brighter than anything before, spreading across every frequency from radio to gamma. And hidden in that burst, decoded by an independent AI lab in California, was a simple repeating phrase. Phase 2, complete, begin response. The researchers didn't know what it meant. But as one of them wrote later, quietly, in a deleted blog post, if this is communication, then the response won't come from the sky. It'll come from here. Chapter 10. The Silence Before Disclosure. November 12th, 2025. The world didn't end that morning. It just got quiet. After the final burst from 3I Atlas, every major observatory reported total electromagnetic stillness. No pulses, no radio spikes, no anomalies. It was as if the object had exhaled and then gone to sleep. Governments called it stabilization. Scientists called it equilibrium. But the people who'd been watching since day one, the astronomers, the engineers, the insomniacs, knew better. The observatory feeds came back online, one by one, though what they showed was not reassuring. The object hadn't faded away. It had changed color. Once green-white and luminous, 3I Atlas now shone a deep amber, a wavelength centered near 590 nanometers, eerily close to the emission band of living bacterial colonies when observed under stress. And then the images started repeating, not in real time, but looping. Every 90 minutes, the ESA's live feed replayed the exact same frame sequence, the same pixel noise, the same star alignment. Analysts ran motion vectors and found zero parallax. It wasn't a live broadcast. It was a recording. When questioned, the ESA press office released a short statement. Due to ongoing decontamination review, live visual feeds will remain under restricted relay until further notice. Decontamination. The word no one wanted to say out loud. Meanwhile, across the world, subtle changes began unfolding. Satellite magnetometers recorded rhythmic disturbances in the upper atmosphere, cycling every 21 minutes now, not seconds. Ocean buoys logged micro-variations in salinity consistent with weak electrical currents. It was as if Earth itself had been folded into the observation loop. An anonymous official at NASA sent a brief message to several independent researchers. "We are the sample." That line spread through encrypted chats like wildfire, echoing across conspiracy boards and scientific circles alike. If Atlas was a biological observatory, and if it had just completed Phase 2, then perhaps the purpose of its mission wasn't to observe the planets, but to activate the ones that could respond. By mid-November, astronomers at the Paranal Observatory noticed something impossible. A diffuse energy halo had appeared around Earth's orbital path, faint but measurable, like a resonance echoing through the heliosphere. When they ran a Fourier transform on the frequency, it spelled out a clean harmonic ladder. 11 steps, each tone perfectly matched to the emission lines detected from 3I Atlas the week before. It wasn't a random echo, it was a signal, a mirror of the comet's pulse. But now, coming from Earth. The internet erupted with theories. Some said it was a natural plasma resonance. Others whispered about symbiotic entanglement, suggesting Earth had become part of a biological network linking systems across light years. But the silence from official channels said everything. NASA's site froze on a single image of the object, labeled "Observation Terminated." ESA's social media accounts went dark. And then just before midnight UTC, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs issued its first emergency resolution in history. All public discussion of Object 3I Atlas shall be coordinated through the Committee on Planetary Biosecurity. Planetary Biosecurity. At 2 a.m., shortwave radio receivers around the world lit up one last time with the familiar hum. Slower now, deeper, almost like a heartbeat fading into sleep. Every 21 minutes, a soft 3-note sequence, then silence, and then a voice. No one agrees on where it came from. Some heard it in static. Others swear it came through deep space antennas. A whisper, low and calm, repeating 3 words in perfect English. Observation complete. Await response. The voice never returned. By sunrise, the object had dimmed to invisibility. The stars reclaimed the sky. But for days afterward, seismographs around the globe continued to detect faint, rhythmic pulses, buried in the noise, 21 minutes apart, as if something deep beneath the crust was still answering. When journalists asked NASA's acting director for comment, she paused for a long time before replying. "There is a reason we call it an observatory." And then she smiled. Because maybe all this time it wasn't just looking at us. Maybe it was looking for us.